tell us in a simple way about what is synthesized doing?
Yeah, sure. So I think the one way to consider what we do or the problem that we solve, it's all about data. So people might sometimes say that data is going to be the new oil, like the oil of the future. There are a lot of realities about data that make it very difficult to deal with. For instance, when collecting large amounts of data, it becomes difficult when the quality of that data isn't very good. You might have missing data, you might have data that belongs to certain people, it has privacy concerns, it has regulations about it. It becomes very difficult for data scientists and machine learning engineers to work with data. So at Synthesized, we solve this problem that data faces by creating synthetic data. And essentially, what synthetic data is it's data that looks and feels the same as the original data, but it's no longer the original data. It may have the same patterns, the same trends, the same useful qualities about it that original data has, but you no longer have these issues of any privacy concerns or anything like that. It allows, people to share data more easily without sort of legal restrictions, this idea of using synthetic data allows us to create new data where data didn't exist before. So when you have an issue of not having enough examples of something happening in the real world, you can use synthetic data to simply improve the performance of any sort of machine learning or data science task.
Do you mean when you do synthetic data, it means that you create like the past, like historical data as well, and it's in compressed form, or you copy, or how can we describe it?
Yeah, sure. So there are lots of different ways that you can create synthetic data. Synthetic data can be data from the past. It can be data in the future as well. Essentially, what we do is we are training deep generative models to understand patterns in the real world, and then we use that understanding of the patterns to create brand new data points. So maybe one way of looking at it as an analogy is like if you have a photo or a picture of some setting, being able to create a copy of that picture, but every little detail in the new picture is slightly different to the original. But when you look at it from afar, you can see that the two images look very similar. And so you have the same overall property. It's just as useful, but no longer is it original. No longer does every little bit match up to something from the original data.
This kind of synthetic data, what can we use for?
Yeah.
And maybe you have any example that's already applied to some situation or experiment or exhibition or something?
Yeah, sure. Our main use cases for synthetic data typically are involved in any sort of machine learning or data science task where there is a big imbalance of data. So, for example, in let's say credit underwriting or fraud, when you're trying to predict a fraudulent transaction within some data set, it's often the case that you have hundreds of thousands of examples of not fraud, and then maybe only 10 to 100 real examples of fraud. And in these situations where the data is very scarce, machine learning models and classification algorithms often tend to underperform, and they don't do so well. So one way to improve this is to use synthetic data to increase the number of fraudulent examples. So we can generate realistic types of fraud that have happened in data, and that has been shown to improve the quality of sort of fraud detection, for instance. One other use case is with synthetic data is when I want to share some data but that data belongs to customers or clients. And there is, I guess, for example, GDPR laws about sharing customer data. Instead of sharing the actual data, I can create synthetic data, which has very similar properties, but it's no longer the original data. And so that lets me share, for instance, maybe I'm wanting to share the data set internally, but to another country, or I'm working with a third party and I'm trying to demo something. I can use synthetic data instead of original data, and so you really sort of enable sort of much faster, I guess, time to sort of collaboration, for instance.
What kind of institution your client are?
Sure. We work primarily with large financial institutions. So two of our customers are Deutsche Bank and UBS, for instance. So very large sort of top tier one financial institutions. We work with insurers, reinsurers as well. We've had a lot of success helping big sort of pharmaceutical companies as well. It's often the case with a lot of AI in, I guess, the medical and health sector. There's often very limited data, and so using synthetic data can help a lot when it comes to improving the performance of machine learning.
Do you expect to find any partner in Indonesia, or have you found?
Yeah, so we haven't yet found any partners in Indonesia, but I do believe there's a massive opportunity there, especially when it comes to, I'm aware there are a lot of sort of financial institutions in Indonesia. I'm aware there have been some new privacy laws and bills that have been passed recently in Indonesia, and I'm sure these new sorts of privacy restrictions and regulations will have an impact on current data science projects, and so there needs to be tools available to help data scientists to sort of overcome regulations and restrictions. I think as well, the use of synthetic data really helps in situations where there isn't enough available data for a certain situation, and I think it's often the case that for things such as trying to classify fraud or something like that, you don't have enough of like real world examples, and this seems to be an issue that's always prevalent. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity for using synthetic data.
So, what is your experience attending this event today? It's the first UK AA event in Indonesia, actually. What's your experience during the half day?
Yeah, so I found it very insightful. I really enjoyed this panel that I've just been on now. I found it quite interesting, the sort of diverse different range of I guess backgrounds that people have come from. I think for me, something I still want to find out more is I want to learn more about what opportunities are available in Indonesia. I think I understand what it is that I do very well and what it is that Synthesized does very well, but our understanding of the needs of Indonesia